So let's say that this glass represents you. Now, you and I are not perfect. In fact, you and I have made some mistakes. We've fallen short a few times. The book of Romans says that all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And you know what? There is such thing as sin. And we have free will. So we can choose whether or not we're going to devote our lives to sin, to ourselves, to our own selfish nature, or to God. And we have the choice to choose. But ultimately, Jesus was the one who came and made all things right after sin took place. We talked about this a little bit last week, but Jesus is the only one who is pure. And in fact, we would be made pure as well if it weren't for sin that got in the way between us and Jesus. And I know you're looking at this, and sometimes you look at other people and you think, well, maybe they have it all together. They're not doing anything wrong because look, they look just great on the outside. But I can tell you that if I were to turn the lights out and reveal what's actually under the surface, you'll see that actually, even if we look good on the outside, we're not. Sin nature lives within inside of us. Each of us have a natural bent towards sin. Each of us has a sinful nature. And each of us have fallen short of the nature and the glory of God. We're not as pure and clean, as clear as what we seem on the outside sometimes. And you can see that sin has had its way in us, even when we think that we've got everybody fooled. But some of us, we don't even need to look good on the outside. It's perfectly clear, and we're able to see that we have chosen sin. And sin, once it takes hold in our lives, it completely distorts us. It makes us not into the person that God designed us to be. It made us unclean in the sight of God. And it ultimately separates us from Jesus even further. Every time we gave into addiction, every time we submitted ourselves to our own desires at the expense of somebody else, every time that we chose to walk away from the plan that God had for us, it's in the little choices, and day by day, and every choice that we make, we have become more and more polluted by sin the longer that we're alive. And in the Old Testament, there had to be sacrifices that were made in order to make us pure again, but it wasn't really a complete sacrifice, because no sacrifice could ever make us completely pure again and without blemish. But what Jesus did on the cross was he took the punishment of sin upon himself so that you and I can take sin out of the picture. And once we accept him into our lives, he makes us pure again. He takes away the consequences of sin. He takes away the pain and the sorrow, and he makes us who we were always meant to be, pure and blameless in his sight. In fact, he can take away all sin. When he died on that cross, he didn't just take away your sin, he took away all of the sin of the world. And he poured out everything of his own life and took the punishment for us. He gave his life and was obedient even to death on a cross so that you and I can live with him inside of us again. So that you and I can live the way that we were designed, whole and complete, perfect. That is what Jesus did on the cross. I love the way Paul says it in 2 Corinthians. He says this in 2 Corinthians 5, verse 21. God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. So not only did Jesus take the punishment of death for us, but it says that he himself took our sin for us as well through that death. And through that death, he conquered death. That's why I love in Revelation chapter 12, it says he conquered death by death. We no longer use the same weapons. We no longer fight in the same way the rest of the world. We win through death. The dying of ourselves, the dying to our sin, and being filled with his Spirit in our lives.